All right. Hello, everyone. This is a lecture over the functions of the spinal cord and the reflex arc. So when we're talking about the spinal cord, you should know that the spinal cord joins the brain right at the medulla oblongata. So at the top of my screen, you can see the arrow, my cursor. The terminal end of the medulla oblongata of the brain. So right up here is considered brain. You can see the cerebellum right here, okay? And then the spinal cord goes all the way down to the end of the spinal column. And we're going to know that it ends in that sacral region and that sacral curvature. Okay, so you can see all of the ganglion of nerves coming out either side. They will come out either side of the vertebrae. In this top picture, we can see them sticking out the sides, and then when we zoom in, we can see these nerves coming out, reaching towards, well, wherever they're going. The nerves in the in the cervical region are going to go towards your upper body and your arms. All right, your thoracic region is going to go to your internal organs, and there's going to be a lot of information that gets sent to you, let's say, like your digestive system and so forth, okay, in regulating things and so forth. And then down lower, you're going to have the nerves that will end up going to your legs and so forth. So we're doing a general basic overview. We are not going to get specific in all of the nerves as they relate to the body. But what we do want to understand is we want to understand that sensory information is coming in to the brain, okay? So remember that the brain does a bunch of different things, all right? And all of the information that's coming into the brain is first going to go to the sensory cortex, okay? So the sensory cortex is what processes all of that information going into the brain. And of course, you know, then it's going to have to sort that information out. So, for example, we learned that visual information gets sent to the occipital lobe, all right? We have our sensory information being sent to, our sensory information is sent to the parietal lobe. Our motor cortex is going to be on the other side of that fissure in the frontal lobe. All right, our hearing and our smell and speech, you can see down here, things are going to be distributed throughout the brain. All right, and then in the frontal lobe, we talked about the fact that this is where your decision-making processes get sorted out. They get to conscious thought. This is where our conscious lives. And if your frontal lobe is not intact, well, then you're not going to have the same level of consciousness as somebody who does have their frontal lobe intact. Okay, so when you talk about brain damage, remember that it depends on where the brain is damaged, the cause that will relate or result from that damage. Okay, so we want to focus on the fact that the spinal cord does more than just take sensory information to the brain. But we're going to make sure and write that down first. So if you do not have this written down, the functions of the spinal cord, just what we said, they're going to carry the sensory impulses to the brain, and they're going to carry motor impulses from the brain to muscles and glands, okay? So they carry information up to the brain and they carry the information back. But there's one more thing they do, and that is going to be your reflexes. Your reflexes all are controlled in your spinal cord. All right, so I'm going to go back to this for a second, and we're going to look at this region of the spinal cord. So you'll notice that there's a butterfly-shaped gray matter center in the spinal cord. Okay, please remember that gray matter is going to be cell bodies and other neuroglia, whereas the white matter has the axons to speed up impulses. Okay, so you've got a whole bunch of speedy, speedy, speedy taking us to the gray matter there. All right, so remember that your gray matter is, again, those cells. And in our reflexes, we have an interesting thing happening. And that is that some information is decided upon in the spine, in the spinal cord. Okay? So a reflex is going to be something that you don't have to think about. When doctors test your reflexes, they're looking for an even response from both sides of your body, showing that you have symmetry in your neurological responses. Now, unfortunately, we don't get to play with reflexes since we're not in person, but normally we get to get out our little reflex hammers and we get to tap on each other's knees and arms, and we get to look for the reflexes that you have in your body. You have a number of reflexes in your body, not just the ones in your knees. That's just the one that is most tested. So hopefully you've had a doctor take a little soft end hammer and tap the ends of your knees. And of course, when you tap the end of your knee, what happens? Well, your foot moves. And that is a reflex. That information does not go to the brain before your body produces that movement. Okay? So this speeds up our reactions to things in order to prevent us from being injured. All right. So we've talked about the fact that your skin is your first line of defense. So let's imagine that you are sitting on the floor watching television and your little sister is working on an art project and she leaves a tack on the carpet. And you reach back and you go to lean on your hand and there's a tack under it. Well, as you come down on that tack, your receptors are going to sense that there is a problem and they are going to send that information, problem, problem, problem. Well, you have an intraneuron right here that you're going to have a decision made by the spinal cord to do something. You're going to have a motor neuron activate your bicep that says, wait, no, ouch, I'm not touching that. Okay. And so it happens before you even realize it. Again, it's a reflex. Okay. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience that you picked up something and it was hot. And before you actually even thought about the fact that it was hot, you dropped it. Okay. So that I've experienced that a number of times in my many, many years of life. If a fly is flying towards your eye, you'll close your eyes and blink before your brain actually processes that information. All right. And these are reflexes and they are completely centered in your spinal cord. All right. Now there is a delayed sensation that's sent to the brain. Your brain does pick up on it for certain. But even people in comas that are unconscious will have reflexes because these decisions are made in the spinal column. So what you need to know about your reflex arc is that, one, there has to be some sort of stimulus. I gave you the examples of a fly flying in your eye, a tack on the carpet, or else something hot that you touch. Your sensory neurons are going to carry that information to the interneuron. An interneuron are going to be those neurons that we find in the spinal cord. In the spinal cord, your spinal cord makes the decision to produce a motor movement. Remember, motor means movement. So then you have a motor neuron that sends the signal back to what we call the effector muscle. What muscle was affected by the motor neuron response? So usually that's a muscle. You contract your muscle in order to move your hand. You contract the muscles in your eye in order to blink. All right, super, super important. And remember, this all happens before that signal is sent to the brain. All right, so when you go to the doctor, this is what the doctor does. The doctor has your knee set at a 90-degree. He takes his little reflex hammer and he's able to tap on the ligament that holds your patella. You guys should know that your patella is your kneecap. If you look at the picture, you can see the reflex hammer going to the ligament. Nope. No, it's ligament. Or is it tendon? Bone to bone is ligament, but look at the top of the patella. Then you have bone to muscle. So below your patella is a ligament and above your patella is a tendon, all right? So they hit the reflex area there. That message goes to your spinal cord. Your spinal cord responds with a motor instruction. Contract your leg contracts, and your foot moves, okay? So when you activate the motor neuron, you get that reflex there in the leg, all right? So that's it for your reflex arc and the functions of the spinal cord. If you have any questions, please remember to to pause this, send me an email, come to class and ask me a question. Whatever you guys need, you need to let me know so I can help you. Okay, next up, neurological disorders.